So my friends, the question at hand is sewing our own clothing more sustainable? Is it actually better for the environment, or are we missing a few key things? This is a topic that is really near and dear to my heart, and as this is Fashion Revolution Week, I thought it a great topic for us to actually discuss and bring this topic to life and have us all talk together about some ideas that we can use to be more sustainable. It's up to us in our everyday choices that we do in our sewing to make better sustainable choices. So let's talk about this. Welcome back, my lovely ladies and gents. It is always such a pleasure to see your smiling faces there. If we are just meeting for the first time, my name is Evelyn Wood, and well, those of you that have been here for a long time, you know that I am very much into refashioning and mending, and well, I try and make better and better choices to be more sustainable that I can. And it's very top of mind this week, as it is actually Fashion Revolution Week. I'll get to that in a second. Now, I want to discuss some of the things that we can do in our daily practices, in our sewing, that can make us be more sustainable. Things to think about, because I know before I realized these things, I didn't know that this was a big problem. I used to think, well, I sew, so I'm not into fast fashion. I don't give my money to those people, so I'm completely out of it, right? I'm free and clear. Yeah, well, not so much. And it is one of the things that Fashion Revolution Week, this week, it's an organization. It's an event and an organization that was started, I think, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. I should look that up. And it asks of the world for us to think about fast fashion and the true impact that it has on our world, and asks people who made our clothes, or more specifically, I made my clothes, or what's in my clothes. It all came about, it began when the Rana Plaza incident happened in Bangladesh, where it is a garment factory, very run down and not paid very well in their workers. The entire factory collapsed, killing over 1,100 people. Now, there's all sorts of things. You can look into it. There's things saying that, you know, the fire escape doors are closed and people were locked inside. They had warnings of all this happening. It's truly, truly a horrible story. And it was this that sparked the Fashion Revolution organization, and it has just grown and grown. And so there is a week, and that is this week, where there's so many different activities and opportunities to learn more about it. And I thought, let's take this opportunity to talk about it here, because as I said, it is near and dear to my heart. I think it is up to us to make a difference in this world. You need to be the change that you want to see in the world, right? And I think that we can do better in fashion, and just because we make our own clothes, we still have a part in that, because although we don't, obviously we've put ourselves in the garment maker role, there are a lot of other factors that still go into it. The fabrics and the materials that are used, the transport, the logistics, how the fibers are manufactured, all of this accounts for a big part of the pollution and the non-ethical practices that happen. If this is new information to you and you are just hearing this kind of topic for the first time, the fashion industry is in fact the second biggest polluter in, like, the industry wise. It is only second to the oil industry. I mean, wow, right? So fashion pollutes from not only the landfill, so that's the end use, gets just thrown out, as you know. Most of it, I think, is it estimated some horrible 50% or something amount of clothing just ends up being thrown out with hardly any use of it at all. And it just is like giant piles and mounds and mounds, mountains of used clothing that ends up being burnt or just sits there, because most of it is polyester and doesn't even degrade either. Then, of course, there's the garment workers, and it pollutes in the manufacture of the fabrics, the dyes used, the chemicals used to process things, and also all of the chemicals and the unsustainable practices used to produce the fibers in the first place. There is a huge list of things that go on, and I would encourage you to look into that more on your own. There is lots of things for Fashion Revolution that you can look at there, because here's the thing, there is no one right answer. It's really going to depend on your personal choices, on what different sets of values that you have that might be more beneficial for you to look at. But even over, if it's, you know, the pollution, if it is the ethical nature of things, if it is animal welfare, there's different sort of things, but I think we have a few main points that we can work on that cover all of these. And things that I use in my sewing to be more sustainable. So what are these things? Well, so this is the how. How can we make those better choices? Because when we know better, we do better. So I think these go across the board on any different values that you have. Generally, the thing that makes up most of our sewing is the fabric, right? And the haberdashery. And so not buying new things and using secondhand fabric, haberdashery, everything is going to be one of the best choices that you can make. You can buy secondhand pretty much everything. So go to thrift stores and find the different fabrics. Use old bed sheets for all your toiles and mock-ups. They're generally a similar type of fabric to what you might use. And therefore suitable to use for those toiles and mock-ups. You can find so much fabric when you really look and start looking and know where to look and know how to do the thrift hunting. Comes with practice. Think about using secondhand sewing supplies or your haberdashery. You can find so many different sewing equipment and patterns and tools and, you know, bias bindings, fastenings, hooks and eyes. There's just, honestly, there is so much out there secondhand. I have actually made videos in the past on what sewing supplies you can get from the thrift store, so I highly recommend that you watch that one after this one. Using secondhand supplies, one, it does not send your money to manufacturers who are then manufacturing these brand new goods and therefore does not give them your money. It does not make new products, so all those resources that we have to use to make them, it does not happen. So all of that, plus it actually, usually, it's going to save something from being in landfill as well. So I feel like this is kind of like a double whammy, so to say, in the sustainability factor, and that is using secondhand. And then another one is, of course, using what you've got. So I know all of us sewers have, generally, we kind of accumulate giant stashes of things because it's just so fun to collect them. And using what you've got rather than going and buying brand new, what have you got in your stash that you could use already? And using it a bit more wisely is something definitely that we can do that is more sustainable. Caring for your clothes is the next one. We all know that loved clothes last. That is the term coined for the fashion revolution, and I love it because it really does have that sentiment, right? The clothes that we love, we want to take care of, and we want them to last longer. So this is why I do hashtag Monday mending, as you know. So mending our clothing, whether we've made them or whether we've bought them, making them last longer before we get to the end of life, so to say, make a huge impact. So Monday mending, if you don't know, is something that I started a few years ago. I know we all end up with broken clothing, whether a button comes off, a hem comes down, popped seams, whatever it is, things happen. And we all put it in a pile and we all intend to do it soon, you know, but that day never comes, does it? The pile just grows and grows and grows, and, you know, there's more fun sewing to do than mending, right? Yeah, that's what I thought too. So I decided to give myself a day of the week, Monday, just because it rhymed with mending. And I said every Monday I will go to my pile and pick just at least one item and just get it done. So some days that one item is a 5-minute button to sew on. Other days that is an hour long, maybe spend and do a beautiful visible mending job, just like this one, although that was over several Monday mendings. I have a few other videos too. I'm going to put the links all down below to those if you want some ideas. So it's something that obviously you can do as well. Perhaps you would like to join us for Monday mending and just do your mending on Mondays too. Use the hashtag on social media and tag me so I can see your mending, because I really do love to see it. If you look up the tag on Instagram, you will be flooded with all these different mending ideas and inspiration from all of you on your mending jobs. It is so inspirational to see what you all do. It is wonderful. So go look it up, and I encourage you, perhaps start a Monday mending of your own and pick a day of the week to just get through all of those items that you need to do. Next thing is look at laundry. The amount that we wash our clothes makes a big impact. So the clothes we make and obviously the clothes that we wear. In the past, clothes were washed much less frequently. So washing causes not only damage to our clothes, but things in like polyester, they actually release microplastics because polyester is basically a plastic, and microfibers come off and it is released out into the world, and it is polluting our oceans and is a huge problem, and one that is really hard to measure, but it's even harder to actually fix because it's microplastics. I mean, what do? You can't even see it. So have a think about that. The temperature, try and wash with cold water. It uses less electricity, less harmful on our clothes as well, and also line dry. So just let it dry naturally if you can, rather than use the dryer. Is all ways that doing your laundry can make an impact. More sustainable practices, everyday practices, right? Sewing with quality rather than quantity in mind is the next thing that we can really look at. So it's probably better to have a few great things that we really love and really want to sew and put all our effort in and are amazing, rather than having lots of things that are just, okay, and then we end up probably not loving them as much and passing them on. And obviously we don't want them to end up in landfill and just, having too much stuff that we don't really appreciate. So having a look, slowing down in your sewing and really thinking about what you're making, instead of just making lots of things that are okay. Save up. Buy the better fabric for those really great pieces. Spend more time doing beautiful finishes on them. You'll probably love the result more, and you'll therefore love that item more, wear it more, and keep it longer as well. And of course, a refashion. This kind of goes in line with getting secondhand as well, but refashioning clothes. So look at thrift store clothes as fabric, even sometimes just bits of fabric. What can you do with it? Just tweaking and making our clothes fit better, therefore we like them better and we'll wear them more and they'll last longer. Just looking at those second-hand thrift store items as fabric, and what can you do? Really use your creativity with it. As you know, I love this. This is my hashtag garment renovation, because this is something that was done all through history. We did not throw away clothes. This is just a modern day thing that we throw things out. So renovating clothing and refashioning them into something new is something that is done a long time. I have made another video about that as well. It's quite interesting if you're if that rings a little bell and you want to learn more, go watch that video. I think you'll really enjoy that. But I have an entire playlist on my thrift to vintage refashions. You can see the refashion for this shirt here, this skirt here. I mean, there's a whole playlist. I'm going to link all those videos down below if you want some inspiration. I like to go really behind the scenes and tell you about my thought process, why I'm doing this and that versus not that. So it's a bit of a different look at refashioning, I think, to give you a bit more of the thought process behind it all, because it can be difficult if you've never done it before. So it is actually one thing that I teach a lot of inside vintagesewingschool.com. This is my online sewing school where I teach people the vintage sewing skills and techniques that were once used for modern day sewing. So refashioning is one of them. We have a number of different workshops that are start to finish, so to really help you through the process from start to finish. But then the basic skills that you need, whether you're starting sewing from scratch or wanting to use patterns for the first time, refashion for the first time, maybe you're picking up sewing for the first time in a long time. It's got the learning lessons there that you can really understand what you're doing. Just kind of the way that they used to teach sewing when I look at sewing books. It's about the skills, not just make this, make this, make this. It's about understanding how and why you're doing things so you can create anything you want. I could talk about it forever. I would love to have you in class if you really want to take your sewing to the next level, and particularly refashioning, because nobody teaches this, honestly. So Vintage Sewing School is quite different, but I would love for you to join us if you feel that it's for you. It's vintagesewingschool.com. I'm going to link to that down below as well. Now, choosing choosing a fibre type is one thing that we can look at very much as well. goes without saying, I think we probably already know that polyester is a synthetic fiber, and therefore it's basically a plastic, and it doesn't break down, or it takes a very, very long time to break down. So, and that is what half of the problem with the landfill in fashion being thrown away, is that it doesn't break down, and 60% of all of our clothing is now polyester. That is what I have read, is 60%. It's a huge amount, and think all of that is just going to be there forever, just sitting in these giant piles of landfill textiles. But that's not to say that choosing a natural fiber is necessarily just the easy way out either, because cotton, for example, to grow cotton takes an enormous amount of water, and it's grown in huge big monocrops that just, take over the entire landscape. I think it is something like 1,500 gallons of water are needed for just one single pair of jeans, like outrageous amounts. And the amount of pesticides and chemicals needed to grow the cotton as well, I mean, it sends farmers broke. So unfortunately, just choosing natural over synthetic isn't necessarily always the best choice. And here we go again, in that we actually go full circle, in that choosing second-hand fabrics kind of negates all of those issues. And we go back full circle again to the choosing second-hand, if we can, at all times, is probably one of the best choices that we can make to be the most sustainable, and possibly one of the easiest choices that we can probably change our habits to do as well. Do I do all of these things 100% of the time? Absolutely not. There is no perfect, right? There is absolutely no perfect. There is no right answer to any of all of this. I think it's just about making better and better choices. It's what we do every day that makes a difference. And I just continue to myself to try and look at what I'm doing and try and just make better and better choices as I go along. And the more we talk about these types of things, the more ideas we get of different things we can do, things we should do, things we didn't know that were necessarily a problem. So I want to open up this conversation. And so I want to hear from you. What are the sort of sustainable fashion and sewing practices that you do? Let us know down below what the main ones are for you. And remember to go and read those comments, because the more we share and talk about this, the more we can all do better together and learn from each other. I really look forward to hearing the kinds of practices that you do, or maybe this has actually opened your eyes up for the first time, and tell me, what are you perhaps going to look at trying to change in your habits to be more sustainable? I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you know someone who is into this sort of thing and you think they'll enjoy it, please share it, because the more people that we have making better sustainable choices, the better. How we make our clothing and how we sew, how we wear our clothing, what we do every day is going to make the difference. So I would so much appreciate it if you share it with someone who knows, who would like to listen to this. Thank you very much for watching as always. Look down below, again in the description box, for all the links to those videos that I think you'll really like too. Until next time, happy sustainable sewing. Bye.